A very good evening to all our viewers, and welcome to this new edition of Startup Speaks, the monthly digest that celebrates the journey of some of the most promising startups in our ecosystem today. Now, this particular episode is brought to you jointly by the Department of Information Technology and Electronics, Government of West Bengal, in association with Calcutta Innovation Park, along with NASSCOM 10,000 Startups, the K-Tech Innovation Hub, and of course, the broadcast partner, Proho.in. A quick few words about the Calcutta Innovation Park. This is essentially a not-for-profit company that was established under the aegis of Calcutta to promote entrepreneurship and innovation. And it aims at creating a complete and comprehensive ecosystem to promote and nurture innovative enterprises. And our guests today are Varun Biani, who's the co-founder of Super Procure. With him, we have Harshapritam Deka, who's the founder and CEO of My 3D Selfie. And last but not least, of course, Konark Sharma, who's the founder and CEO of Freestand Sampling Solutions. So, gentlemen, a very warm welcome to Startup Speaks. Good evening to all of you.
Good evening. Thank you.
So, Varun, why don't I get started with you? Take us through your entrepreneurial journey, because when I was going through your profile, right, one of the things that I saw that, of course, you had the training as a software engineer, and then you spent some time in IBM and did a whole lot of things that a lot of people in your generation, in fact, people who are much older have done. But many people, if you see, are still there with the IBMs and the Wipros and the Accentures of the world, whereas you had taken a step forward into entrepreneurship fairly early in your career. Take us through that transition period. What inspired you? What motivated you?
So I think what inspired me was that I come from a family which is into business. So, and they are in the logistics space. So talk about where is the shipment, where is the load stuck. I mean, this was a very common dinner time talk we used to see every day. And so while I graduated from college, I was with IBM, and then I was in US, did my master's, I was into consulting. So it was getting monotonous after some point in time. And, there was always that bug from that, there is a bigger opportunity in India, and this is about 2013, 2014 times when, the startup ecosystem was booming up and technology had penetrated. I mean, we had very good penetration of Android and WhatsApp. So, this is where it all caught up. I quit my job in US and came back to India to pursue something on my own. And since then, it's been a roller coaster ride. I mean, there is, like I said, the day starts at 6 o'clock in the morning and it ends by 11 o'clock, and yet there is the to-do list, which never gets over. And that's the fun and thrill of entrepreneurship. That the moment you're about to slit your wrists, there is a payment which comes in from a customer, and they say that we're happy to see what you're doing, and that kind of fire keeps you burning and keeps you motivated towards waking up every day and solve some problems. Yeah.
So, Varun, you said you come from a business background, a business family. So obviously that's a great help in terms of giving you the support and giving you the confidence in doing this.
Right.
And of course, as you said, right, logistics, transportation, that's pretty much in the family. It's in your blood. At any point of time in your entrepreneurial journey, did you think, okay, I'm going to try and do something else, something completely different, or something new? But do you have this in the future?
I think something. See, innovation or a problem or a solution, I mean, it comes out from something you face on a day-to-day basis. And, living with this problem since my childhood days, that, things are not organized, technology penetration is not very deep. It's a very, the kind of people who are into this space are not so tech savvy, yet it's a very, very large job creator in India. So, you kind of lived with that problem, and you would always think that, hey, what can be done to solve it? So, no, the idea of something else never crossed my mind. I was pretty much stuck to the industry, and obviously you would learn from other industries and try to solve problems in a similar way. But yeah, pretty much I was very much confined in this space. Even when I was studying, I did a lot of research, and see I would see how the UPSs and the FedExes of the world are solving some of these problems, and that was a lot to learn from there.
So it's fair to say that right from the beginning, when you knew that you were going to get into entrepreneurship, there was a commitment, a dedication to this particular business problem in this particular sector, right? And even when you were looking at, like you said, researching and taking in the best practice, it was always kind of dedicated for the sector, right?
Yes.
Okay. Great. Varun, we are going to be back for many more questions. In the meantime, let me go to Harsha. And for the benefit of our viewers, the live audience, why don't you take us through your entrepreneurship journey? Just tell us a little bit about your education, your professional background, and what got you into entrepreneurship.
Sure. My entrepreneurial journey goes back in like 2010 when I was studying in Canada. I started my own software service company. Then I started a couple of other projects like barterbooks.com, barterbooksonline.com, then BBO Escape, which is a stress management application at the time. We were quite early. Also, we were very occupied by the service providing company, so I cannot lead on to the business. I always see that I try to indulge in a business which can make people happy, or like make my customers happy. That I realized when I was working on those particular applications and businesses. And I always wanted to come back to Northeast. That's where I'm originally from. So I wanted to contribute something in whatever possible ways. So I decided that in 2016, after living for 14 years in Canada, I wanted to come back and try to establish something in Guwahati in Assam. And I was very fascinated by 3D printing. At the time, 3D printing, 2016, 3D scanners came in where you can scan your whole body and get a figurine. I also saw a huge market gap because it doesn't qualify as a gift item or miss the surprise element, because you cannot take the person to the scan store. Hey, I want to give you a gift of yourself. So I see that what if we can try to do it from photo, similar to the 3D scanners. And we did quite a bit of R&D, and within few months we realized that we could have a 90% accurate model from any type of photo. We were the first to bring that up and start doing a lifelike 3D printed replica from any type of photo, and we delivered to until now we delivered to around 39 countries. So that is my entrepreneurial journey so far. Yeah.
Great. And if you're talking about 3D selfie per se, at which point of time, when was this established, and how many people do you have with you at the moment?
We started in 2016, and now we have 15 people in the team.
Okay. Great. Let me take you back to a little bit earlier in your entrepreneurship journey as well. So, for example, you talked about there were other ventures that you tried your hand at, including something around stress management. Do you still find the time to pursue those ventures, or are they kind of on the back burner at the moment?
No, I realized that if I do multiple, I was doing multiple, the service providing company, running this BBO, the stress management applications and all that, and it's too time consuming. You could just focus on one and get it done, make it big. So I realized this around 2016 when I started my 3D selfie, and I decided in 2018 I want to just focus just on one venture, and don't want to focus on multiple things. Get one, go big, and that will be more influential, because if you do multiple things at once, I don't think so you can make it that big.
Right. And what made you hone in on this particular thing on my 3D selfie?
The beauty of expressing love and emotion, because whenever someone buy a product from us, it's so emotional that sometimes, say, for example, someone is no more in the family, and you want to create a lifelike replica of that person to have it as a memoir, and you cherish this every day. It's so emotionally, there is such a strong connection with our customers that whenever the first difference that created in my life when the customer called us crying, that she was so happy after receiving the product that she can even help herself, she was calling everybody and asked them to come down to see the product. So that kind of emotions actually brings a lot of joy, and I don't think so any money can buy that. and that emotional value is so much that I want to stick to this business and make it more, we put a larger impact in life. Yeah.
Right. That's absolutely fascinating. Harsha, we are going to be back with you for more questions. In the meantime, let's move over to Konark. So, Konark, in the spirit of our usual conversation, why don't we start by you talking to the viewers about your entrepreneurial journey and how that journey has been thus far?
Oh, absolutely. I think for me, entrepreneurship has happened since right from the beginning of college. And I think I started my college when I was in 2013. And like my college journey and my adulthood has coincided with several technological booms happening around us, right? So when I was in college, 2013, YouTube became a big phenomenon. It was starting to scale up in India big time. And the first venture we did was a short filmmaking production house, where we decided that we're going to make short films that are going to be slightly on the serious side of it because there was a lot of funny content. And that was the first venture that we started out. I did that with my college friends. Learned my first few lessons over there. And right before I was going to graduate college, in my final year, I took my health very seriously. So I had a weight loss journey, right, myself, and I lost about 25, 30 kgs. And right above my gym was a Godrej Nature's Basket, right? And there, like raw pressed juice really became a very important part of my weight loss story. And like the only thing I thought was that there could be a better variant to the raw presseries, cold pressed juice. There could be a slightly better tasting variant that would have some merit to it. We felt so, and I shared the idea with my friends, and I like both my co-founders have done some college projects with them, here and there, worked on some entrepreneurial ideas before. So I shared it with them, and like they were like, yeah, it sounds like something could be done there. And in that process, we, while we were starting to prep up, how would we launch this cold press juice brand and everything, we realized that if you make a better tasting variant of an existing product, right, the way you would market that is by driving a lot of product trials for your product, right, by doing a lot of product sampling for it. And as youngsters, we went out, we tried to figure out how does product sampling work in the market. And we realized that you'd have to hire a lot of promoters, and there would be a lot of manual handing out of product samples at retail stores. Plus, there's no data that we'd be able to assess and say empirically that whether it's working or not. And then there would be a lot of management involved and all of those things. In that process, it kind of became very obvious. We saw other brands also sampling over there. And we saw all sorts of problems with it. No data, no targeting. People are just coming, taking away samples. It's not a serious marketing. It becomes a very less serious marketing activity when done the way it is being done. Despite that, it stays a very important challenge. So that's when we decided. That's when we kind of wanted to build a solution for ourselves, like for marketing our business. In the process of developing that solution, we really felt that this is actually a much bigger need in the market. Like to sample the like to create a product sampling scenario, like it'll allow a lot of meritorious brands to stand out there, because product sampling is the kind of marketing that works for brands that have the ability to go out there and say, here's my product, take it, try, if you like it, then buy, right? And that kind of market will lead to the origin of much more competitive Indian brands that have a much more stronger purpose behind them. Right, and since then we've been we took a very iterative approach. We knew that this is an enterprise tech product that we're going to be building. We did not know a lot about FMCG enterprises, so the approach we took is we released the product, MVP, invested little resources, came up with something that could solve the problem, sold it to the market, saw how it worked, what didn't work about it, came back, improved on the product, and kept very lean. Like all of us stayed with our families, and kept at very minimum burn, did not take enough salaries. That's the journey we've been taking up. We've taken, and we've been very well supported by and embraced by a lot of FMCG brands across the country, and incubators like I'm Calcutta, IC Banastali, Zone Startups. All of these have come to help us learn a lot of things, and so on and so forth. And now we're seeing a very good movement around our company now. So so I think our startup journey is about empathizing out and receiving empathy backwards ourselves as well. So that's
right.
That's it is. Yeah.
Great. And you mentioned, of course, that your entrepreneurial journey, in fact, began very, very early whilst you were still in college, and again at a very early age. At any point of time, did you have any ambition, harbor any aspiration of being anything else apart from an entrepreneur?
Oh, absolutely. I think there was entrepreneurship is essentially it's about having your own conviction in the fact that this needs to be brought to the world, and so I'm doing it. But I would want to work on a lot of cool ideas. I think I remember writing an email to the Google RR team, which was working on a modular phone back then. So that was a cool project that I kind of saw. I wanted to like dabble here and there into multiple other things like YouTube. I really loved YouTube analytics and all those things. So there were a lot of things here and there. But of course, the core idea became that identifying where I could add tremendous value, or actually understand how to solve a problem. Having that curiosity, how does this work? I think that's been a more driving factor. Yeah.
Lovely. Great to know about your entrepreneurial journeys. Now let's do a deep dive of the actual businesses and the core products and offerings, right? Varun, why don't we start off with you? Tell us about not just the business model of Super Procure, but what is it that really stands out from its competitors? What are the USPs?
So we were in the transportation business when we started this journey, and we could go when we went out to the market. We could see that it's like so many touch points are there when a truckload moves from a point A to point B, like a very simple dispatch from, let's say, Calcutta to Bangalore. There are more than 20 people coordinating on that. There are more than 15 people who are calling the driver, asking him where he is. And this does not include his family. So the whole idea was, why not bring all this information right from the time the order is placed by a customer till its final delivery, till the final accounting is settled, and bring it on one umbrella and share it with all the relevant stakeholders. So we started with an MVP, solved a very small problem wherein the negotiation of it would happen on a seamless way, and then took it on, but from one module to other. And obviously, so the beauty of it is that the pain point, I mean, we thought that the pain point is there, but it affects the smaller companies, the SMBs, but not the enterprises. But when we got deeper into it, we could see that the problem exists all across the board. And I can say not just in India, but it is a global problem to the transport management real time, make it more optimized, make it more visible across the board. So this is what we do. We help manufacturing, construction, and infra companies seamlessly digitize their end-to-end transportation related activities. And when I say transportation, I mean like a truckload, I mean rail movement, port movement. There's a few things which we are working towards, but primarily we are solving the full truckload problem right now. So yeah, huge opportunity, a huge, massive problem statement. And obviously the market is also crowded and different players are attacking the problem from different sides. It's a huge space to be in.
And you, there, of course, larger players and various other players who are trying to all attack it with with a new and innovation angle. So have a market which is large and a business problem which is staring you in the face, which is that palpable, right? It becomes important to have something which is innovative, which is to say, we are not one of the also rans, but we look at it in a unique way. We have an innovative perspective, right, or a fresh way of looking at it. What is that freshness and perspective that Super Procure brings?
So I think we are approaching the problem from a very human standpoint. I mean, a lot of people look at it as an engineering problem. I think this is a very basic collaboration problem. Like how the accounting softwares came, and now there are multiple accounting softwares out there. The CRM space, the HRM space, how it is flooded with too many options right now. The similar change is happening in the logistics tech space. Realizing that by optimizing their supply chains, by bringing down their costs, and massively improving their customer service, right? Just imagine you place an order on Amazon and you get real-time updates of where the order is, and there is so many things happening in the background till it reaches you, right? Now imagine you are a distributor of a large FMCG company and you place an order like that. There's so much that happens in the background. There's so many people who are involved, from finance, logistics, sales and marketing, the transporter, even the security at a factory who's constantly updating things that the truck has reached, the truck has been dispatched. So all this visibility currently needs to be given to the person who has placed the order, and it all happens in Excels or over emails, and that's the kind of problem we are approaching, and making it very human is what I would say.
Right. You talked about visibility, so it's not just visibility to the end product, the end customer of the Amazon or the Flipkart order, but there's a greater visibility from the perspective of the startup founder, in this case yourself, to your target market, right? So,
Right.
what have been some of the ways in which you've been able to market and promote Super Procure? Because, as you said, it's a large space and it's difficult to stand out, or rather, it's easy to get lost in the crowd because there's so many players. There's quite a bit of noise in the system. Not everybody is as effective, right? So, how do you stand out from a promotion marketing standpoint? What was your approach?
So the market which we are dealing with are let's say our target audience is not the ones sitting on social media, or they're not the ones who are out there on a digital space. So it is a lot of feet in ground, and a lot of email marketing. And so interestingly, what happens is we sit between a manufacturing company and his transport service providers. So there is a lot of network effect now which is being brought on. I mean, since COVID, I would say 50% of the closures that we have done have been through referrals. So an employee works for company A, moves on to company B, and tries to implement the system there because of value there. Let's say a transporter who's working in our system, he's happy using the software, the platform. He recommends us that, hey, why don't you go and give it a try? So a lot of referrals, email marketing seems to be working very well. You present the stories that, okay, hey, this is the success story in this particular industry. These are the problems that we are tackling. So similarly, the other folks in the industry reach out to us and try to ask for a demo or a POC. So I mean, again, a lot of things we are doing on the marketing side, but these are some of the things which have worked.
Okay, great. We'll be back again for more rounds of questions. In the meantime, Harsha, why don't we go over to you? Why don't you tell us a little bit more about the 3D selfie and talk to us in terms of the figurines, in terms of whether if I want a figurine. So let's say I'm gone on a field trip with I don't have, but I wish I did, a pair of Alsatians, maybe, let's say, right, at pets. And I want to have a memory of that because, of course, I'm going to live till I'm 80 or maybe, who knows, 100, but my Alsatians won't, right? So I want to preserve that memory, that emotional connection for all times to come and have that there, right? So what typically are the kinds of offers that you will give in terms of the look and feel, in terms of maybe the size of the figurines, etc.? Take us through that.
Sure. So our is simple. We want to replace photographs in every household. So just like you correctly said, I have gone to a trip with your pets, and you want to preserve the memory along with the background as well. We could create that. So basically, if we have to see from a problem standpoint, before it was a problem of availability, accessibility, and affordability. 3D scanners were very, it's an asset-heavy model. You have to go to the scan store to scan yourself to get a lifelike model. It is not flexible. You cannot take your car or even dogs because the dogs keeps moving, right? You cannot take your pets easily. So you have to stand still inside the scanner. So what we did is that, from any type of photo, we realized that you cannot have all types of photo because most of the time people are not buying the figurines for themselves. It's more like a gift item. So you're buying for your loved ones, right? So when you do so, you might not have access to great quality photo. So basically, 90% of the time, we don't get good quality photos. People send whatever photos they have, and we have to create it from them. So we build our system and process in such a way that we should be able to create it even from a black and white to a blurry or even a high quality photo. So our USP is that from any type of photo, we could create a 90% model that is consistent throughout our products. So the other qualities are people comes up with all kinds of imaginations. They would say I want to hold a prop. I don't want my body. I want a different body. Maybe one of the customers wanted a bird body inside and on top of his face. So imagination is the limit. It's interesting, very exciting, business to be in. Because you get to know so many stories, right? There are a lot of stories that come to us, and they're so full of emotions. People use us for weddings. It's like we're a celebration company. We celebrate from the first cry to the last breath. We celebrate the emotions of the first cry to the last breath. So we will stick to your important days and moments that you want to capture. Instead of a photograph, you want to capture now in a tangible 3D printed figurines.
Right. And going back to the specific instance, so for example, if you get blurry images or if you get images, which makes the construction of the figurines difficult, do you actually go back to the customers and ask for more samples? Or for example, I'll give you another example. So for example, I give you a profile photograph, let's say, of my grandmother who is no more, right? But obviously it's a 3D print, so you need to know what you would have looked like from a front and so forth. So in that case, do you go back to the customer and say, no, give us more photographs so that we can get a more sort of
it depends. Right? Say for example, the example you gave, like your grandfather who is no more, you want a figure, you might not have a profile photo, right? You might have just a black and white photo, and we have to create it from, right? And that's our duty, that's our USP, that we should be able to create it from any type of photo. So if sometimes you come to us and the photo is really bad, and we really need some good quality photo to create that output, yes, we go to our customers and ask them that, okay, can you provide us few more photos? But when you realize that the person is no more and the customer already mentioned that he cannot provide or she cannot provide more photos, then we have to stick around with her in a system and just create it with whatever we have.
I see. Okay. And how large are these figurines?
It is from 5 inches to 12 inches. So we can also create a life size figurines now. I mean, obviously I won't call it figurines when it's life size. So we can also do a life size figure as well. So we work it out a way where we could do that. And at the same time, you mentioned about the profile photo. I would also want to mention this, that if it is a profile photo, it becomes very easy for us to create it. And the beauty is that we are creating from all types of photo. That's the USP and that's the business. But if it is a profile photo, that makes our job easy, and it becomes a very easy task for us to create it.
Right. And you also mentioned affordability, which is of course a very important thing, particularly the kind of economic turmoil that we're going through. And one of the things that I noticed on your website is that you have an option which says buy now but pay over time. Yes. I'm not mistaken, right? Yes. So tell us about that, and tell us, how that helps you reach a larger mass of people, most of whom, some of whom may not be in a position to be able to afford it. I still want to have this, but I may not be able to afford it right now.
Yeah. We tied up with a company called Affirm. So what happens is, like, you can come down to our website. I think it's mostly for the American crowd. So you have there will be a credit check right away, and the system would tell you that, okay, you're qualified, and then you just need to pay like 20% now, and you can pay the rest in 6 months time. So they don't, and the other the payment gateway takes care of that, and the person gets the product within the due course of time, and he keeps paying for the next 6 months or 9 months, whatever tenure they signed up for.
Right, exactly. Great. So, we're going to be back again for more questions with you, Harsha. In the meantime, why don't we go over to Konark as well, right? So, Konark, in terms of the sampling solutions, take us through the nitty-gritties of the business and the way that you've sort of refined this over time. What have been some of the learnings that you've had along the way?
Right. We started off, the for learnings is that in India, like, when you give away something for free, there are a lot of people, that want to claim something like that, right? And they may not necessarily be the right target audience for your brand always, and for a sampling campaign to deliver a return over investment, right? For the brands, we need to be able to reach out and target the right people. So for us, one of the biggest challenges has been, how do we qualify a customer for the sampling process? Like, how do we make sure that the customer who's receiving the sample is the most practical fit? So that's where a lot of our innovation has gone into outside of it. And the other nitty-gritties for product sampling would be, I think we're one of the first movers in this category. So we're pretty much doing a lot of our learnings for the first time as we're going about it. And so, like, the first challenge would be, let's say, the targeting of the customer. Like, how do you target the customers? Then the next bit is the current sampling process, the way it happens, right? You just take the sample and you walk away, right? There's no brand has no idea who took the sample, how did they feel about it, sending them a coupon or that continuing that interaction once that has been initiated, right? So with digital sampling, we're able to, deliver a direct brand to customer interaction, utilizing chatbot. So like this customer can always connect with the brand, tell them how did they exactly feel about the product, did they like the product, or did they dislike the product. And often, people once they receive a product sample after claiming it on an online channel, after interacting with the brand, the first stage is almost distrust. Like online se kuch free mein nahi aata hai, right? You'll not get anything for free online.
Yeah. There must be something somewhere, there's something in the fine print, there's something that I'm missing out. I'm going to get perception that people have.
There's a lot of perception there, and then once they get the sample, actually there's a lot of awestruck there. People will go back to the original post, where they saw this ad to claim the sample. They'll go back to it and they'll tag their friends and they'll say, I actually received this sample, and they'll be like, you also should try and claim this sample. So that ends up happening a lot in that process. And like customers tend to get they attach themselves a lot strongly with a brand because of a direct brand to customer interaction on chatbot. So we had a brand, they were doing a healthy snack, and they came back, like customers who received the samples to that process came back and said, maybe this is how I also make a similar snack. Maybe you could tweak the recipe by adding this ingredient differently to your product. So that kind of customer involvement with product sampling is very different, and then there is so the targeting the customer, interacting with the customer is very new. And, then there is a sample fulfillment, delivering the sample to the customer's house, and like that is also very new, because currently when product sampling happens, right, at a retail store, it's almost a flying moment. Like your mind share that has been captured is barely for 30 seconds, 40 seconds, whatever the time is. You've grabbed it, you've gulped it, and you've gone, right? Once you receive a sample, it's a delivery at your home. Now it's an event, right? I want to unbox the sample, and like now you will possibly hold it, look around it, and maybe there can be a sharing event around it, right? That happens. And if the brand has put in a lot more effort in doing a slightly fancier packaging, brand has invested in educating the customer through the sample box that they've created. The customers sometimes also share a picture of them receiving a sample online onto the social media, generating organic user generated content through that process. So from a nitty-gritties perspective of product sampling, I hope like this is the correct answer here. But it's targeting with the right customers, interacting with them in a way that they feel comfortable and can trust the brand, and lastly, delivering that sample to the customer's house. So broadly, those would be some of the challenges. Yeah.
What's been your strategy? What's been kind of like your winning motto or mantra when you started off, right? In terms of marketing or promoting what you have to offer at Freestand?
I maximize the value for the client, right? Maximize the ROI for the brand, right? Like, so making sure, starting from the fact that we started off as an aggregated model, right? Where we were like a bundled sampling offering where there were 3 brands inside of 3-4 brands that would be inside of one box. The customer would directly interact with Freestand as an entity, and Freestand would get a lot of love, right? Through that process, people would really love us. But we realized, that I think that love belongs to the brand directly. So, we shifted and we became more of an enterprise tech model where we directly integrate in the brand social media. And now the customer is directly interacting with just the brand. And, all of the love, all of the good feedback is just coming to the brand only directly in that process. So like every single iteration that we have had, we have practically just optimized for how do you deliver more value to the brand? How do you get them a positive ROI into the campaign? Bringing it from like, okay, how can we collect feedback? How can we, make the conversion journey shorter, on the chatbot interaction? Like once the customer has shared a positive feedback, how do you make sure that the customer has all the necessary options to make a purchase with the brand? Integrating a payment gateway directly in that process, reducing the number of clicks required in that journey. How do you optimize for? How do you provide the client a lot more transparency, right, on the campaign, so that they can see, okay, these many samples have been delivered in real time. That the real time trackability with product sampling did not exist before Freestand, right? We are the ones to bring it to the table for the first time, right? Customer feedback data, and the ability to remarket for the client. Even after the sampling campaign is over, how do you keep that conversation going? With the same customer, so on and so forth. So every single action that has lead to an influx in value, has allowed us to grow has practically been an action that made that increased the ROI for the brand as well. Yeah.
Right. I want to bring in a little bit of a different sort of perspective and flavor to this discussion. I mean, like it or not, right? We live in pandemic times. There's no point living in denial of that, right? And I think one of the fallouts of living in denial is the surge in the cases that you see across the country, right? One of the many cases, one of the many reasons. So, Varun, why don't I start with you again, right? Particularly from the perspective of logistics and transportation and the entire supply chain, right? And if we go back to March, exactly the same date maybe of last year when we had started the national lockdown, and then that kept extending, right, over and over and over through successive waves and phases. And throughout this entire thing, it was a question that, okay, there would be transportation, but only of items which were essential. So a huge amount of the total quantum of business, the total quantum of goods that would be going all across the country was being impeded for a very, very long time, right? So throughout this entire period, and even when they started, countries started to come out of that in the unlock one or whatever you want to call it, right? It was anything but easy. You know this better than most others. Tell about the experience of that, okay? What it made you realize, what were some of the maybe lessons learned, what made you, not just cope, not just survive that period, but maybe have some lessons which has made you a smarter entrepreneur, for future? Because this may be one of its kind, but this is, I think it'd be foolish for us to feel that if there's not going to be any other disruption for the rest of our natural lives. There will be, not in this shape or form, but for sure in some other shape or form.
Right. So, from a business point of view, like I said, the months of March and April are very crucial for us because a lot of the enterprises, they have their purchase orders signed upon and closed out. So that was a big jolt to us because we had a lot of orders which were to be confirmed and they got postponed. So there was a direct impact on the cash flow. In terms of the business, so there was a bit of, I think for a week or so, the trucks were kind of stuck where they were, but after a week, it really picked up. So a lot of our customers are into FMCG business, be it detergent, be it a biscuit making company, be it a tea making company. All these goods had to be. So yeah, there was a slowdown from, let's say, the infra side of things, anything which was non-essential, be it packaging material, be it iron and steel movement. So that kind of took a hit, but FMCG made up for it. So there was a huge demand. Couple of things which happened interestingly for us was, see, we are based out of Calcutta, so acquiring talent was always a challenge for us. So someone staying out in a Bangalore or a Bombay would be reluctant to move to Calcutta. So that kind of helped us after the lockdown. We could hire a team now across India, and
no matter who people were, as long as they had the talent and were connected through the internet and do the work for you.
Yeah. So no more. I mean, we are still continuing to work remotely, and it's stressful for everybody. When we're working longer hours, there are calls which go, which stretch beyond the normal working hours. There are calls on the weekend also, and it's been stressful for the team, for the families. But yeah, that's probably the new normal, and we have to. And in terms of, I would say, in terms of the market, that definitely seeing a lot more traction than what we were seeing in pre-COVID times. Everybody wants things to be digitized. They want visibility across the board. So on the side, yes, there is a lot more traction, and with a distributed team, we have better talent. Access to a better talent pool now. To be honest.
Okay. And what have been some of the things that you're doing or you're continuing to do to make things less stressful for you? Because as you said, right, having a distributed team has its pros and cons. The flip side of the coin is that, as you said, right, again, longer hours and you're not really connected with the team. There can be an element of sort of dissociation or alienation or whatever you call it, right, disconnectedness. So what are some of the things that you would that you have done and you're continuing to do, or you plan to do if this continues, because this might continue for a substantial while longer, to make things easier for the team?
Right. So again, times have been such, honestly, that we haven't been able to, take some time off work and probably have some kind of a virtual meet. I mean, we did one, and during the New Year, the Christmas time, when The volumes were on the slightly lower side, so we did a virtual meetup and had all the team members joining in 2-3 sessions wherein we just talked about the product, what's the future looks like. We even did some awards and awarded the employees who were doing good work. But yeah, to be honest, that's something I really miss, meeting the team members every day and mixing the work and fun a bit. So that part definitely is
Connect, right, with your on a day-to-day basis. Right. Exactly. Yeah. Harsha, why don't we hear your experience throughout the entire, the worst days of the pandemic and, how things are at the moment?
Sure. So, when the pandemic hit, we had to go back to our analytics, try to understand the metrics properly, how customers are behaving. So April, May, June was that quarter we have to understand how we go about this. Should we keep marketing online? Should we try to go after customers, or whom to market, what to market, when to market? So all those 3 Ws are important. We went to the analytics dashboard. We tried to jot down the data and how to go after this from the next quarter. So, fortunately, July, when we changed our strategy, it started working. We started doing 2 to 2.5x growth, and month-over-month growth as well, like 40 to 50%. And we did that till November. November was a very good month for us. And obviously, December it's kind of sliced down because it's seasonality effect. The season is dying right now, where people have shopped for all the gifts and all the products and whatever they want during that time, because we are more focused on the European and the Western side.
Sure.
So January, February more or less are always low, but this time what we saw is we thought that in December we'll kind of spike up a little bit, but what happened is in December COVID was like 5 times or 6x in US and Europe, and also the election has affected. So December, January, and February, we see quite a significant fall. March is slowly picking up, but more or less January, February are consistently low numbers. But this year, it kind of, because we came from a bigger number, right? And then again, the COVID was 5x, 6x in both the continents. So that's what affected us. Yeah.
I'm trying to sort of understand and map the surge that you mentioned, right? The 2x to 2.5x, with the way that from a cognitive psychological standpoint or a behavioral standpoint, right? I mean, let's say it's business as usual. So I have my normal 12 or 13-hour day, right? With only so much of time for emotions and only so much of time outside, work, and only so much of time, I guess, very small amount of time for memories and for cherishing and for really, taking a step back and, okay, so what have I achieved in life and what has this year been and what is my family like or what my relationships are like, etc. Do you think that part of the big surge is because in that forced lockdown and the forced social distancing period, people across the world, not just in India, but particularly in the West, who've never had to have this kind of a lifestyle, since the Second World War, honestly, right? Was this because that forced them in a way to compel them to look inward instead of looking outward, and therefore, delve deeper into their own psyche and find solace in their personal relationships, find solace in who they actually were and their emotions and their relationship with other people, and that is what led to this surge?
I think so because it's very the numbers were very unpredictable. We couldn't predict the numbers properly. It was very uncertain times, right? Still, it is very uncertain how the e-commerce is moving. But yeah, I think you're right, because people were they have more time in hand. Because obviously, if you go to your office, that's a small example. If you go to an office, if you're in the Bay Area, if you go to an office in San Francisco, it'll take you a couple of hours. You're wasting a couple of hours on that. Now you're getting a couple of hours in hand at home. You don't have to travel outside, right? So those hours actually kind of get accumulated into like thinking or appreciating your life or the people who you care and love. And that's helped them to go and search for things that they want to. I think more time has helped them to buy stuff for their moments and loved ones and all that. I think that's very crucial. I think that was one of the points where I think the surge happened. Yeah.
Right. And of course, you talked about the unpredictability of it. And even though there is a known seasonality, right, that it dips down to December and then goes up again, because everything was overlaid by the disruptions caused by the pandemic, there was no way that you could really predict that is that seasonality even going to be followed, or is there going to be a lag, is there going to be like an accelerated effect or an amplified effect, right? So if we look at, maybe the biggest sort of learning or the key learning for you as, through this entire experience, and it's continuing, what would you say that is, and how has that made you into a better, more mature, more resilient, I don't want to put words in your mouth, right, but as an entrepreneur?
I mean, think twice before spending money, right? At this point in time, you need to know whether you have to spend money on marketing or you have to save the money and try to and just try to figure out a way where it is more organic in nature, not than inorganic. You need to make sure that you have a tight budget as well, so that you're well equipped to face the future, because you don't know what's going to happen in the next 6 months, because pandemic is here to stay for at least another year or so. So we have to be well prepared in terms of budgeting our cost, cutting down few of the costs which is not working, and also making sure that our team is performing and it has to be optimized. We have to look at holistic view of the optimization process in the company. Because if you optimize, like, say, for example, if a 9-hour shift is producing X amount of result, you need to figure out a way where a 9-hour shift can produce an X plus 1 kind of result. So we work on our optimization based, be it marketing, be it operation, or be it your production time. That's where we can reduce our, the budget, and also work effectively going forward.
Mm-hmm. Yep, great. Kunal, if I look at the basic sort of motto of your venture, right? It's digitizing that entire product sampling experience. And given the fact that we're probably leading digitized lives or digital online lives to the extent of digital fatigue, but this, as Harsha mentioned, it's going to stay with us entire year, maybe more. And some of these things are never going to go back to a pre-pandemic normal, right? So given the fact that we have this entire range of disruptions from a personal standpoint, to what extent does digitization help, or how would things have been, put it in another way, right, if we didn't have a solution like this? How much more difficult, how much more maybe impossible in certain cases would it have been in the worst days of the pandemic?
We kept, just before the lockdown, we were having one of the best quarters ever, right, at Freestand and everything. And once the lockdown stuck, right, so of course marketing took its due toll as well, but we were still speaking to the enterprise customers and everything. We were we were still trying to, we took that time and we realized this is a good time to probably double down on our development efforts for the next version that we're going to be shipping. And so we've seen the search for product sampling for sure happening now. Like, it's gotten trickier for any of us to go to a retail store and to pick up a live chip along with a hummus, that's in the open. That's almost a no-no, right, for a lot of people. So that is for sure. Like the growth in online sales, like I think during the lockdown and post the lockdown as well, a lot of us have just shifted to purely even buying groceries online, right? So the drop in the customer presence at the store or at the event, right, has certainly been like a shift in like the brands are also thinking, how do they work around it? So we have seen like brands trying to be a lot more innovative in their product sampling. And of course digitization itself takes away the laborious things out of digitizing any offering, takes away the laborious boring parts out of the offering, and allows everybody to be a lot more innovative, allows everybody to be a lot more creative with how they're going to do it. So now, we're seeing new use cases emerging with our technology along with brands trying to come in and say, hey, can we do A with this thing? Can we boost customer advocacy with product sampling? Can we, possibly test out which variant would do better or amongst the two, in this case. So we've been able to notice a lot of, those changes from a brand perspective directly, that now they're taking it a lot more seriously, because now there's trackability involved, the measurability is there, the questions are a lot more okay, so how can we use this data to drive more insights out of that can be a lot more actionable for us. So the conversation around product sampling has gotten a lot more serious for us, and we're witnessing that change, and we I think product sampling will come back. I think the event sampling, but I think it will be a lot more better. It will be a lot more entertaining in the physical spaces, right? I think that has its own value for sure. Certain products do very well in physical space product sampling, I believe, at events and so on and so forth. And I think now both will have their own spaces, and brands will have effective marketing techniques to actually choose from, as we move ahead, in times. Yeah.
Exactly. We are coming up towards the last 10 minutes of our show, and at the same time, I see there's a viewer question. So why don't we make this last question, and I'm going to club in a little bit of a rejoinder of myself. So Shaunak's question here is has the pandemic and the kind of changes that it's entailed in the workplace brought about some fundamental changes in the way that startups will function in the future? And to this, let me just also add, what is your advice? Right, and I would like each of you to take this. What is your advice to any aspiring startup entrepreneur or any person who wanted to launch his or her venture in 2020 and obviously could not, and now is trying to test the waters and now is asking the fundamental question: should I be brave enough? Is this the right time? Should I actually go in? Should I take the plunge in 2021 or not? So if I just club these two questions, Varun, again, you can do first.
So I think to answer the first question, I think the motto, there has been a fundamental change in the way we are working, right? There used to be a switch on, we reach office, we work, then there was a switch off, you go back home. So that definitely has, is no more exists. There is a continuous thing. And I mean, it takes a toll on the family, the spouses, the toddlers at home. So, that is something I believe, how it's going to work out. But yes, something startups need to be cognizant about. There needs to be that balance, because we're in that same zone, that same space, and sitting in that same place throughout the day. So I don't know how it's going to happen, but that's something which we should function, which there's going to be a change in the way things function. And I think there's just play for survival. Right now, times are such unprecedented. To unnecessary costs, make sure that what's necessary is being spent on, and focus on sales, focus on the value proposition. And a tip for future entrepreneurs is, there is no right time to jump into this. If you have an idea, which there is an unmet need in the market, and there are people willing to pay for it, that's again part of the journey, and there's a shortcut to it. You have to go down the streets, you have to वो कहते हैं ना, हाथ गंदे करने पड़ेंगे आपको, and तभी जाके कुछ होगा, and there will be blood, sweat, whatnot involved in this, but that's the fun, that's the thrill of it. Right.
Indeed. Harsha, what's your take on these two questions?
Number one will be prepare for the worst and hope for the best. After a pandemic, we don't know how the economy would be, right? We have to prepare for that as well. It's kind of scary when you think about it. Then, of course, as Varun rightly said, like, we have to cut down the cost, make sure that you are prepared for the worst days. I don't know whether the worst has already gone or it's going to come. And also make sure that, if you have a idea, you want to start it, take a decision and make it right. There is no such thing called right decisions. If you have a decision, if you have an idea, just go and work it out. You will figure it out yourself within a few months, whether it is working or not. So that's it from my end. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just to add one last point, I think what people need to understand is that there's always going to be room for a perfect product, and it's never going to be perfect. Sales is the most important thing. If there is sales, trust me, it pumps up the adrenaline, and it gives a different kind of a thing to the entrepreneur.
Just a feel. Yeah.
Yes, it's oxygen.
Yeah. Absolutely. Kunak, your take on this?
I think this is the best time to start the startup, right? Like, I think from any perspective, I think inherently right now, all the no-code tools, right, a movement has really made developing a tech product super simple right now, right? Mm-hmm. And there is an entire momentum, like there is a lot of fundamental business model shift that are taking place right now, right? And the attention is available for good things online, right? So I think it's very easy into any, like people are a lot more collaborative, is what I feel like. It's much more easier to get a client meeting and have that interaction over a video call. That makes the bar that would be like, like before pandemic, if you had to, let's say, go to a client meeting, you have to drive and there'd be cost and everything around it. Now
you go to another city, set up things, talk to, different layers of, I wouldn't call them bureaucracy, but administration, talk to somebody's secretary, set up a meeting, go out there, wait, do the meeting, come back. And all of that's kind of being collapsed, right?
Yeah.
It becomes much easier to do business.
And additionally, onto that, I think we need to understand that, the change times will require us to change the way we work with our teams. So like we have taken up an asynchronous work approach, right? Essentially, practically, we can use, there are tools around it, like you can use Loom and Slack very effectively. And so people should be allowed to work on the problems, whenever in their own time. Somebody's fine working at night. It should be like, they should be able to do their job, record a video about what they've done. If they have a question, querying, right? I think the new times allow for people to be more of who they really are. And, as startup lead, as people who have been given the responsibility, fortunate enough to have the responsibility of leading, these ambitious people in our teams. I think it's really effective if we can, accommodate for everybody's unique way of, building themselves up. And, just like collaborations have become very different entirely. I think like the level of conversation, I think, we have a Saturday session where we just discuss a fun podcast, right, that we just saw, and everybody is able to ask more meaningful questions. I think the small set of team, right, can much more deeply connected, can deliver, and facilitated with ease of doing, can deliver amazing output, as it said. So I think the adapting to this time, people who adapt to the pandemic effectively will have an inherent advantage going ahead, is what we strongly feel. And starting a business now will teach you those lessons very early, right, and take on those advantages as you go ahead, is what that's what we've noticed at Freestand. And that's, I think, what I would feel about that everybody should look at doing. Yeah.
Right. And of course, you talked about collaborators, you talked about customers. And if we take the other third sort of vertical or pillar of that entire story, if you're talking about incubators and also investors, what do you think the current pandemic scenario, the continuing pandemic scenario is playing out in terms of, let's say, investors? What do you think that scenario is like at the moment? And do you think it's likely to improve or likely to change? Maybe just last few very quick comments, and then we can close.
Right. So I think from our perspective, we've been able to, we have received the most amount of investment during the time of pandemic itself, right? And I think that trend is going to be going up only, because there are going to be more obvious opportunities that for digitization, everything that was to be digitized is, now everybody's recognizing it actually does need to be digitized. So ideas that was
like now, it's not something that, yes, this is a nice to have, ye karna chahiye, and we'll look at it sometime in the future. It's become maybe the pandemic, the silver lining, right, that I'm getting from this, is the pandemic has made it essential. It's a mandate. You have to do it, and you have to do it now. We should have done it yesterday. Therefore, whatever needs to get done in terms of streamlining processes, streamlining businesses, streamlining resources needs to be done on a more raw footing kind of a thing, right?
Absolutely. We do see
Varun, Harsha, you want to add to that?
So yeah, people are going lean on their spendings. They want, the expectations have gone up. They want better services, and definitely there is a lot of interest from the investor community, the incubator community as well. And like like you said, there's no more a need to take a flight, go somewhere. We've had issues when you've gone. We've gone to negotiate for 10,000 rupees and taken a flight to Delhi, waited the whole day, and then came back to just negotiate for 10,000 rupees. So that kind of has stopped. So
Yes.
it's a different world altogether now. And if there is an idea, if there's a value, just the things which have changed is that investors are more cognizant about things, that you have to have a traction. There needs to be an active customer base. It's not just an idea on a piece of paper. And obviously there is a demand for those kind of ideas, novel ideas as well. But again, from a serious B2B space point of view, there is definitely a need of action. There needs to be revenue in place before the investors drive any interest out of it.
Absolutely. Harsha?
Yeah, I think it has become easier to pitch an investor nowadays because of the because online, right? You don't have to set up a meeting. There's time, so I think it has become a little easier to pitch to an investor. And I think, with the right, we need to have this little bit of traction and just to show that you are surviving. And I think it's possible funds during this pandemic times. Yeah.
Fantastic. We are just at the end of the hour, the top of the hour. So Varun, Harsha, Kunark, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to all of you. I wish you all the best in your current ventures and any future ventures that you might want to take up going forward. And I'm sure that the viewers who've been listening in, who've been tuned in, particularly, I'm talking about people who, might have been very dejected through most of last year and are kind of like on the verge of giving up. Oh my God, the cases are rising up again. Or people who are scared, saying, okay, I wanted to launch a startup in 2020. Should I go in for now? I think they would have got a lot of value, a lot of sort of insights and key takeaways from this discussion. And that's going to help them in their entrepreneurial journey. So with that, I thank you all. I thank the audience. And we're going to be back with another session of Startup Speaks around the end of April. Till then, thanks. Goodbye. Stay safe.
Thank you. Thank you, Avik.
Thank you.